40 years in a barn, 4 decades of rust, dust and silence, but not anymore. Welcome back to another episode of RC Classic Garage, where we're back on the Alfa Romeo 1750 GTV barn find Restoration. Now in the last episode we welded in the driver's side floor. We also tackled this driver's door, where we had to weld on a new bottom section and put on a new door skin so that we could get the lines absolutely perfect in order to start welding in the sill. So in this episode, let's get the driver's side prepped, welded and into undercoat, and hopefully move on to the front end of the car, hoping that this little barn find does not throw off too many more surprises. Let's get stuck in. Now we've spent a lot of time getting this door lined up just right, because on these old Alfas, getting gaps perfect is essential. Once the door is set, that's what tells you exactly where the sill needs to go. So after hours of measuring, adjusting and double checking, we finally have it. Gaps we're happy with all the way around, and the new sill is screwed into position. And now it's time to go. We start welding in the bottom, right along the lower edge of the sill. Again, ensuring that we clean up the weld lines and prime it. Then we move on to the front section of the sill, and the same process. Clean it, weld it, grind it smooth, and protect it with weld through primer. It's a rhythm you get used to. Prime, weld, grind, prime, over and over again. Now with the bottom and front welded in, we move on to the back of the sill, and it's the same process again. Weld, grind, and seal it up with primer to keep future rust at bay. Now, we spotted something we didn't like. The steel behind the inner sill inside the wheel arch wasn't up to scratch. So we're not taking any shortcuts on this build. We made a call. Time for a patch. Out comes the old metal, cleanly cut, and this area is prepped properly. And through this opening, we get a perfect look at the inner sill. And honestly, it's in fantastic shape. We're lucky. That part could have been a nightmare. And a new patch is made to fit. Welded in cleanly, and of course, ground and hit with weld through primer to keep everything sealed and protected. Now with that sorted, we can finish off welding the rest of the rear of the sill and get that all sealed up. It's time to move on to the top section of the sill, right along the base of the door. Now this is the final piece of the sill. We take our time here, careful welding, grinding and priming. And just like that, we've got a brand new outer sill fully fitted. And honestly, it looks fantastic. I'm really happy with how it has come out. Now, we shift focus to the rear quarter. And that means test fitting all of the panels we prepped earlier, because it's all about alignment before anything gets welded. So we start with the rear valance and then move on to the lower rear wing. We start with the front section of the rear wheel arch, getting the replacement panel trimmed, prepped and test fitted. Because once we're happy with the alignment, we'll protect the inner surfaces with primer and get it ready for welding. Next, it's onto the top section of the wheel arch. Final bit of cutting, ground it back, spray it in primer, and getting it ready for its final fit. Then comes the lower rear panel. And again, it's all about careful positioning. It needs to line perfectly up to the top arch, the back balance, and the lower corner. Now everything lines up nicely, so let's get welding. We start with the inner panel. This is the one that ties the boot floor to the inner wheel arch and the wheel well. It might not look like the most visible piece, but it's crucial for strength, and you can really feel it. Once it's welded in, everything stiffens up. It's a solid anchor for the rest of the structure. Now, with that done, we move on to the outer panels and begin welding from the back corner, working our way forward, along the top of the wheel arch, across the curve, and onto the front section. As always, it's weld, grind, clean. Make sure every joint is as solid and as tidy as we go. There's nothing quite as satisfying as watching these panels come together piece by piece and knowing it's all properly sealed and structurally sound. Now, with all the new panels welded in, it's time to tidy things up. There's a few little dents here and there, so it's out with a hammer and dolly for some old-fashioned panel beating. Now, a bit of filler always helps smooth things out. So once we're happy that the panels are straight and free of rust, it's time for the first layer of filler. We're using a chemical metal here. It gives a really strong first coat over the weld seams. Just a thin layer to even things out and seal any imperfections. And then it's a sanding smooth before painting. And just a quick tip, it's always better to apply filler directly to clean metal. That gives it the best bond, rather than trying to stick it over undercoat or primer. Now, before we can spray this panel, there were still a few small patches that needed attention. We spotted some areas of metal that just wasn't up to standard, a little too thin, a bit pitted, and honestly, it's just not worth taking this chance. So, we cut out these sections and replaced them properly. It's a bit more work, but far better to do it now than having rust bubbling through later down the line. So once we got fresh metal in, the weld's cleaned up, we know that this panel is 100% solid and ready for that final prep before paint. And well, that final bit of prep is all about rust prevention. This whole panel is back to bare metal and I am not taking any chances. Any areas that show even a hint of rust, get a coat of rust remover gel. It lifts out the rust completely right down to clean metal. And then, to be extra thorough, I go over everything again with rust converter. In that way, even if there is anything microscopic left behind, it gets neutralized before we move on. And now, with all the exposed areas treated and cleaned, it's time for grey primer. I know the paint shop might strip this back, but for me, it's all about protection. I want to make sure the car is as well sealed and safe from rust as possible before it leaves the garage. With that side done, we now move on to the driver's side floors. There's just one small job left before we can get everything into undercoat, and that's welding in the final seat mount. All measured up, we tack it in place, weld it in solid, and then grind it back nice and smooth. With that done, we give the floor a good clean and hit it with undercoat to lock everything in and keep the rust out. Then it's on with the seam sealer, making sure that all the joints are fully protected. And that's it, this side's done and ready for top coats. Now I am super happy with the way that this side of the car has come out. We are holding off welding the rear valance for now because we're waiting to fit the left side wing so we can line it all up properly. But next job, we need to weld the front wing. And in order to do that, we need to fit the bonnet. Now, I know that the bonnet needs a bit of work, so I'm going to be sending it off to sandblasting. We might as well send it off with the boot lid and the washer panel. Hopefully, they don't need too much work. So loaded into the car and off they went to sandblasting. And well, this is what we got back. Now the bonnet, it's honestly a bit of a disaster. Inside is full of holes and it's going to take a lot of work to put right. Now the outer skin is also pretty wavy. I don't know if you can pick it up on camera because the metal's been stretched. And this is exactly why I'm not a fan of sandblasting. But at this point, I think the best option is to start looking for a new bonnet. Unfortunately, they don't make new ones anymore and their outer skins, well, they're not available. So I'm going to have to start searching for a second-hand one. The boot lid is in better shape, but of course it was hiding rust in very awkward spots. And, well, this will take a bit to fix this and it'll never be quite right. But luckily you can get a brand new boot lid for about £200. And honestly, I definitely think that's going to be the way to go. Now guys, over the last week, I've been really lucky. I've picked up both a boot lid and a bonnet. Well, the boot lid, as I said, is brand new and it fits really, really well to the car. So I'm really happy with that. The bonnet, I also managed to get a very good second-hand one and it cost £200. Now, I do think that that is going to save us a whole lot of heartache because it is a good second-hand bonnet. Now, the second-hand bonnet has arrived and I've got to say, I'm really happy with it. It's in great shape, especially compared to the one that was sent for blasting. Now, before we fit the bonnet, we drop on the wiper panel and it's cleaned up really nicely, fits well, it's in good condition, no dramas here. Now, the reason you have to fit the bonnet before you fit the wing is because of the gaps. The wing gaps need to be spot on against the door, the bonnet and the sill. So it's on with the bonnet, and overall I must say I'm very happy with the fit. The lines are clean, the gaps are consistent, and it's a great match for the car. And the last job here is to refit the bonnet catch. Now, the old one is a bit tired and rusty, and I gave it a clean up using my trusty mix of carbonate soda and citric acid. And you know what? It's actually good enough for now. It's cleaned up nicely and it's back in the car. Now, before we can even think of fitting the new wing, we need to prep it inside properly and make sure it's got paint everywhere, especially in the places we won't be able to reach once it's welded on. So first, I give the inner side of the wing a good cleanup. Get rid of any dust, grease and residue. Then it gets a coat of undercoat and follow that a gripper coat of ochre yellow. And finally, a few top coats of ochre yellow, just to make sure we've got full coverage. This way we know the inside is properly sealed and protected before it even touches the car. Guys, and we'll call that an episode because we've made great progress on this rear wing sill, fitting the boot lid, and of course fitting the bonnet and prepping the wing. So guys, please join me in the next episode when we get stuck into the front end of this car, fitting the wing, getting stuck into the engine bay, doing the cross member and doing all the engine bay repairs. Thanks again for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you all next time. Ciao.